What are the benefits of building modular? In this video, we're going to talk about all the benefits of buying modular with Bonavilla. Let's talk about some of the benefits of modular and tell me what some of those benefits are if you build modular.
I think one of the benefits that we have in our marketplace is going to be really rural America. What we have out there is really selling to the person that's living out kind of away from town. They have a farm, they have a ranch, or they have a piece of property, and it's hard to get a tract builder in there to build that house for them. That's really where we tend to shine most of all in this area.
And that's going to be because in a factory setting, we've got all the labor, materials, and resources there to export it out to these areas, right? And so number one, as far as those benefit goes in a rural area, I think would be timing. So it should be a time benefit compared to site built.
Yeah, and let's face it, these houses go all over the place. We have a location up in Kalispell, Montana, where it's 1,300 miles away. The idea that you can get a house up there, crane it onto a foundation, that house is built strong, it's built tough, and it's going to last a long time.
So in those rural areas, you're talking about people that are, quite frankly, sometimes in places where there are literally people, there's nobody yet to build a house. So even if they can get a house quoted, it's going to be extremely expensive, and it's probably going to be it's not going to be a very timely build, just simply because there's nobody out there that's going to build. But also, I think that as we're talking about, right, there's a variety of factors involved with that. But overall, I think timing is definitely one of the big benefits.
Absolutely.
And I think time, as it relates to benefits, the next thing that's going to translate to is normally going to be cost, right? So if you do get a quote, it's going to be expensive, but also the time can lead to extra cost on a project.
Time is money, right? That's what a lot of people say. So the faster you can get it done, that's going to save the customer in a construction loan and interest, but also just have them in that house a lot faster. So that would also relate to the time savings as it relates to how fast we can build a house.
Would you say that there's a benefit to the factory setting itself if you're building in a modular environment versus site built?
Yeah, because we're being built in a controlled environment, we're not really, I guess, held back by the natural elements that are out there. If it's raining outside, it doesn't matter to us, we're inside. If it's cold, if it's hot, if it's construction people not showing up on time, whatever that might be, because we're built in a controlled environment, that's really going to relate to that time savings too.
Right, and I think that it's not to say we couldn't be affected by the weather, because in certain instances, if we have bad weather, you could have an instance if we get 20 inches of snow that it shuts us down because we can't get people in the plant to work. But the majority of the time, more often than not, it allows us to be completely protected from the elements. And it also means that the majority of what's done and what's built is done while we're in that environment versus being outside of it. And I think the risk of loss, damages, if you have materials that could be susceptible, like wood or something, to water infiltration or extreme heat or extreme cold, building in a controlled environment is going to limit the risk to things like that happening to what you're constructing, right?
Right. We don't have a house that's going to be outside getting hit by the natural elements. They put a roof on, it rains outside, the decking's getting wet, the outside materials all getting wet, and then it can come down to theft. You know, job sites can be very difficult as far as theft is concerned when there's not somebody at that location.
And I think the one other element to the controlled environment that we always talk about is that in an assembly or a manufacturing environment, we're using jigs, tables, and we're using other manufacturing methods in order to make sure that what we're building, we have the opportunity to rely on more of an assembly and an approach with those jigs where these guys aren't, just out in the field on ladders with tape measures. And so overall, just the assembly and the manufacturing process, I think, should be able to lend itself, right, to a little bit more exacting quality standards. And at the same time, we have to acknowledge that we're essentially building construction under a roof. So it's constructed under a roof, but there is an assembly and a manufacturing technique approach that we think should elevate the quality, and that's a part of that building in a controlled environment. We feel like there's an opportunity to reduce some material waste, right, as you're building through, because what gets built, if you have fall off material, it's not multiple contractors out on a job site. And so the key to that really, I think, is that if you think about waste and fall off in the process, the waste and fall off normally as it occurs with multiple contractors in the field, the ability to control that and reuse it is limited by the fact that those guys all work for somebody else and they're coming in and out, all happening under one roof. Even if you think about something as simple as a wood panel, if you have a piece of fall off wood panel and you're able to put it in a dumpster, in our process, you can take all those wood panels and oftentimes reuse them several times versus on site, where if you take a fall off wood panel, it goes in a dumpster, it's going to be thrown away. So the environmental impacts of that, as people are more and more conscious of environmental impacts and carbon footprints, all that stuff happens under a factory roof. And you're also not having the immediate and constant impact of the environmental effects of all the work that's performed on site, because the majority of the work isn't performed on site. Get started working on your modular home project on our website at bonavilla.com at the link below.